Okay, I'm back to do the next bit in the cordage. As you can see, we've got some cordage done. This is what we were working on earlier. Here's our little loop that we braided into the beginning. What we're going to do now is come along and trim all these bits away. This is all your joins where you've introduced new pieces and finished off other pieces. Make sure you don't, this bit here, having a look, could be a fold, so just be careful you don't cut off a fold and end up cutting your work in half. So just work along the length. As you can see, even though I mentioned in the last video to try and keep your width consistent, it's not that easy to do when you're introducing a new length. But hey, I don't mind that, and you know why? Because it's organic, it's handmade, and as a dear friend of mine once told me, that we don't want them to be too perfect, because then it will be too hard to know that it's handmade. So we want these, you know, obviously you want to take pride in what you're doing and put in a bit of effort and have as much neatness and consistency as you can, but we also want a bit of character. So don't be too concerned if it's a bit rough. As you can see, compared to the last video, where I'm beginning to lose the light now. I come out here to record because it is a much better light than inside. It's quite dark inside, and I don't have the right setup to record inside. So at the moment, this is the best I can do. I also like the sound of the birds out here, although I did put the recording of this back a little bit because they were so noisy about 10 minutes ago. They'll come back. You can hear some now. We're incredibly lucky this year to have a lot of native birds. We don't normally have this many this year, every year, not for this long anyway. So throughout the course of these videos, you would have heard a lot of native birds, and the ones I have heard and seen today include rainbow lorikeets, scaly-breasted lorikeets, magpies, kookaburras, little corellas, sulphur-crested cockatoos, butcherbirds, eastern rosellas. So as I'm telling you about the birds, I'm telling you this while I'm tidying this up, just so you can see how to do it and untangle it as you go. I've got it in a bit of a tangle here. So just trimming all these bits off. Apparently we have a big storm headed our way tonight. So we've not long had a downpour of rain. And while I'm sitting out here, I am freezing. It is, I think it's about the first week of winter here, and it's snowing up on the mountains, so It's very cold here. Most people around the area have their fireplaces going already. But the birds are loving it, which again surprises me because normally by this time of year they've moved north where it's warmer. But it's nice to have them here, and as I was going to say earlier, with the rain half an hour or so ago came some wind. So I not only had to contend, there's a kookaburra in the background now, not only had to contend with the noise of the birds, large flocks of birds too, I was also trying to talk over the top of my wind chimes in the garden. So the reason we need to go through and trim all these bits off now, you will see shortly. If we don't trim them now, it's going to make things a bit challenging for the next step. You can see I have over twisted this a little bit, that's why it's turning back on itself, but I prefer to over twist it now and set it while it's still pliable, and try and get it to hold well. I feel it gives the fibre a bit more structure and stability. So it's easy enough to let it settle out of that over twist. But I do like to over twist slightly to let it settle in. So this is what we call a two-ply twist or a two-ply braid, because essentially it just has two strands plied against each other. We're nearly at the end, thank goodness. Some of you might be thinking this is a laborious task. I'll show you when we get to the end, but I have not ended this off because as we go along building your bag or your basket, you will want to keep adding to this to get the desired size. So for now, I've just done quite a loose overhand knot. I probably should tie it off with a bit of elastic or like a rubber band or a piece of string. I didn't use string because I thought it would just slide off anyway, but I've just done a light overhand knot which can be undone again, and we can then introduce and add more fibre to our cordage to make it longer as needed. So there we go, there's the overhand knot. I've just put that there to hold it in while we do what we need to do. Now, I'm not convinced that winding this up is going to help. Sometimes it does. I don't think it will this time. But I can get that twist out a bit. So now what we're going to do is, this is a little bit tricky because I've made this loop a little bit too small. Pull this through, pull. Now you've got to want to make sure, here's your original loop that we braided in. We need to keep that, but you need to keep this loop open as well while you're pulling your length through. Now this is why we needed to trim all those ends off, or it would keep getting caught. Now once we pull this through, we then want to get this end and pull it through that loop that we just made. And we're going to just pull this a little tighter. How tight depends on how much you want your loop to be. You need to keep this loop you just created though big enough that you can thread through that 2 more times again when we come back around. Then we're going to come back up in the original loop again, and once again we want to keep this loop we're creating now, keep it open. Well, that was silly, wasn't it, leaving all that there to get all tangled in. Keep that loop open. And then, like we did last time, from the top, go through that loop we just created again. Now, tighten it up a bit. That's 2. We want to get 5 of these loops in this original loop. And we'll go again. Bring it up through your original loop, maintaining this loop we are now creating. And then down through the loop we just created. And tighten it up again. Just work it around. Now we've got 3. You can see 1, 2, 3. Now let's go again. Up from the bottom of the original loop in the center. And then down through that loop we just created. And there's your 4th loop. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we'll go again. Up from the bottom of your original loop. And then down through the top of the loop we just made. And tighten it up. Now, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops. Now we want to come up from the bottom of this loop we made in the first round, keeping a loop we're now creating, and then down through the top of that loop we just created. And we tighten that up a bit. Now we want to go back through that loop again, that one we just did. We want to come back up from the bottom. Now it's easy to, I should have said this in the beginning, fold your cordage over like this and use it as a type of needle to thread. You just pull enough through. Remember to keep this loop we are now creating. Pull your cordage through. And then back down through the top of the loop we just created. And tighten her up a bit. Now we want to move to the next loop and do the same thing. Up from the bottom. What we're going to do now is twice in the first loop, once in the second one, twice in the third one, once. We're going to go 2, 1, 2, 1 all the way around. When we get all the way around, we're going to do another loop. We're going to keep doing that until you get a flat piece the size that you want. So I'll keep going with this and keep creating a flat circle. 2, 1, 2, 1. And then when I've got a circle as big as what I want, I'll come back and we'll do some more. Until then, I'll see you again.